the figure, synthesis, an apt arrangement of a composition, especially regarding the sounds of adjoining syllables and words. I focus on that in the first paragraph here. But anyway, the example. I was surrounded by artichokes, following the slowpokes, seeking the Great Artichoke. It was no joke. These oldsters believed they could retrieve their youth, their hair, their waistlines, their butts, and more by drinking the artichoke's juice. They all certainly did need some physical restoration, but the notion of a giant therapeutic artichoke somewhere in the fields of Castroville was, to put it mildly, crazy. They'd heard about giant artichokes on one of those alt-right podcasts, where they also learned that Joe Biden is a robot controlled by a Chinese restaurant owner working for the Chinese Communist government. Accordingly, we should listen to nothing Biden says, or we'll be communified and become brain slaves of the Chinese government. The show's host, Reverend Sky Goshawk, sells a number of snake oils: sin-free pork rinds, Fudge Blessings, exploding Satan chasers, and more. The podcast is called Poisoned Minds, and it does just that. My job at the nursing home is to take 4 to 6 people on day trips once a week. That's how I ended up in the artichoke field, wondering what the foray would yield. Probably a chorus of complaining oldsters bad-mouthing Reverend Goshawk. But then Mr. Blanco, a decrepit mess of a man, yelled, "There it is!" And there it was, a 10-foot-high artichoke. They all had aluminum straws they had purchased from Poisoned Minds. They jammed them into the giant artichoke and started sucking away. Mrs. Phipps was the first to show effects. She patted her butt and said softly, "What do you think of this?" She went from 80 to 30 in a flash. She was beautiful. With the benefit of her age and experience, she was perfect. All my chargers were now in their 30s. I couldn't wait to show the giant artichoke to the world. What an amazing cure to the aging process. Plus, I had fallen in love with Mrs. Phipps. We got back to the home around 8. Everybody was shocked when they saw my passengers. They all wanted to go to the fields, but we talked them down and promised that we would go tomorrow. Mrs. Phipps and I slept together that night. When I woke up the next morning, there was a naked old woman lying next to me. It was old Mrs. Phipps. I shrieked and jumped out of my bed. She sat up and said, "Oh dear, I must drink more giant artichoke juice." We got in my car and drove to the artichoke fields. We looked and looked and looked, but we couldn't find the giant artichoke. I was heartbroken, disgusted, and confused. When we returned home, I sprinted up the stairs, packed, and ran back down to my car. The group I'd taken to the fields came running out of the home yelling, "Take us back! Take us back!" They got to my car and started rocking it back and forth. I slammed it into gear, floored it, and took off in a cloud of dust. "Are you okay?" I asked. Mrs. Phipps answered, "Yes," from the floor behind my seat.